Today we are together with Sue Elvis, and it's actually the third time we are hanging out and recording a podcast. So first of all, welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Jesper, and hello, Cecilia.
Hi.
It's such a delight and a pleasure to meet up with you. And I think we've become friends now. And
Yeah, I
I've been looking
agree.
forward to this. Even though we've spoken twice before, I think, oh wow, I get to speak with the Conrads again. I feel very
Oh,
honored.
sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I've got the invitation to come back. As I was saying to my daughter the other day, I mustn't be doing too badly. You've invited me back. You know,
I was thinking the same. I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. I kind of want to
Yeah.
chat.
And then
Can we do it again? We can do it fourth.
Yeah.
We can totally talk.
and then our excuse is to do a podcast, and then the people who are listening will just be forced to us hanging out.
No, the listeners, they are here voluntarily. They can just,
They can skip this episode if
just
it is. No.
not
Let me
listen if-
let me start out by, if you're listening to it, recommend you to check out the other two episodes as well, because we, in the first one, covered Sue's story, heard about how she ended up unschooling, and how she ended up in this life where she is as an unschooled mom. And in the second podcast, we took a deep dive into unconditional love, which is fantastic. And we decided we wanted to talk again, but honestly, we haven't prepared a subject.
And we totally forgot what it was that was the cliffhanger last time, because we're not very organized people, to be honest. But we did come up with a new one.
Yeah.
I sort of did.
Let's take it.
And basically, it's about doubt, I think. So we were chatting a little bit about it before we started recording, just to align. And top of mind for me at the moment is the ever emerging, ever returning question of the toothbrush. And the other very big question, these two questions probably are the most often asked questions right after do they have any friends and how do they learn to read? Then comes what do I do about the toothbrush and how do they get into college? So these are the two things. And what they have in common is that, honestly, my spontaneous answer, and this is, I mean, I'm a professional, I have a university degree, and I have 25 years of experience of being a mother. I'm the oldest sister of a lot of siblings. I brushed a lot of teeth before I was even a teenager. And I have all these children. And I've unschooled since forever, it feels like. And my answer to both questions is, I don't know.
I think one of the things that we've been talking about over the past few episodes is that there aren't answers to everything, are there? That there isn't a perfect way to bring up, educate, and raise our kids and just follow all the steps and it all go perfectly and we'll have all the answers. Sometimes there isn't an answer.
Yeah.
So I was talking to you earlier, Cecilia, about these tricky questions people ask. And I admire you greatly for mentoring other women. My help with people is one step removed. I get a chance to sit there and type my answers out to people and to think about it. But you're in the thick of it. People come to you for help, and I guess they expect you to give them an answer. So what is your question? What was the question that you got asked, and what are you going to say? Because I'll be interested in finding out your perspective on this.
So I will say, as a professional, when I do mentoring and coaching and helping and hand-holding, I call it the abuela job, the grandmother job. So basically, I don't call it therapy. I think it's the wrong word to use, but more I'm like the elder, someone who's walked the path before you. And what I do is to hold your hand when you start the journey. That wouldn't be you personally, because, but that's what I do. And when I think about it right now, basically what I do is to help people cope with the fact that they don't know, and not lean into the mainstream recommendations and just listen to the authority. It could be the state, it could be some handbook, it could be all kinds of things, and go back into intuition, to what feels right, to maybe applying the principles of personal freedom, and therefore the unschooling idea unfolds from there, that it's not our hours to steal, that all of the hours of the childhood. We are not here to decide what our kids are supposed to do for 10,000 hours while they are young. So when we suddenly realize that we do something so far away from mainstream, that we can very easily feel alone, and we will become very insecure, because the entire support system of what makes sense to everyone else suddenly doesn't make sense at all. I have a client at the moment who is also exiting some other ideas from her life, and it's so interesting to follow how it all unravels. You know, once you start questioning one thing and you realize, oh, maybe I always thought that this was how it works, but what if it isn't? Then you start looking at another element of life and you realize, oh, maybe I could ask the same kind of question over here. And then you maybe look at, it could be your health, and then it could be schooling, and then it could be your work life, and then it could be your living situation, and it could be a lot of things, and it unravels from there. And the big question, everything, you know, neon sign has to be plugged in, hanging over your life as it is. And my job becomes basically just walking there right next to you, learning to cope with the fact that you don't know.
I guess, like I've done a bit of counseling in the area of breastfeeding. So I did a counseling course, and I've always sort of approached people's questions with the attitude that, as you said, we walk alongside people and give them things to think about and to ask questions. But ultimately, the responsibility should remain, the power remain in the other parents' hands. And I've always felt that they have to make the decisions. I'm just here. I don't know if you're a professional. I'm not. But
I'm not sure I am either. I'm not
yeah,
sure anyone should be. I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
become the new authority once people leave the mainstream authority. That would be wrong, and that would be against my philosophy. So I think we're basically,
yeah,
you know,
they we're just here to bring up some new ideas, ask questions, direct thoughts, because I think questions sometimes make people, it clarifies what the problem is for people. Sometimes people don't really understand what the problem is, and you keep asking questions and they think, oh yeah, that's the problem, that sort of thing. But I've always been reluctant to take on that role of fixing people's problems, because I don't think that we can fix people's problems, really. That control has to remain with the person who perceives they've got a problem. So maybe that's for me, it's like a way out. I don't have to fix people's problems, because that's not my role. That's not what I'm doing. But I wonder if you feel a responsibility towards your clients or your parents, if you feel a burden there, or not so much a burden because we want to help people, but you feel a responsibility for, fixing helping them fix the problem. And if there isn't an answer, must be a bit frustrating.
it is for me, and it is for the clients as well, but it is also the truth. And I think the other word here that you introduced, the responsibility, that's the other thing that happens when you walk into this path of unschooling or anything that looks like it, that you realize you can't just, push that responsibility for the decisions onto someone else. It's not the government, it's not the doctor, it's not some fancy psychologist, not even me. who can come up with the answers to what's right and wrong, up and down, in and out of your personal life. You know, you have to live with the fact that you have to make some decisions, even though you don't know. You know, we walk through this life forward learning, and all of us could stop and say, oh, had I just known 10 years ago what I know now, then everything would have been better. But that's just not how it is. And I think my job as a professional is more to help my clients cope with that fact. It's more like an existential role that I play. And of course, I can come up with some ideas and some perspectives. You know, I've seen a lot of kids learn to read outside of the school system. And if you're young and new and you have one child reaching the age where maybe they would learn to read, the level of insecurity is huge. And of course, I can fix it. I can give some perspective because there are things I know and things I've seen, but I cannot decide whether you should sit down and teach or not. That's not my decision to make. And I cannot guarantee that the child will learn to read anytime soon. And I can just, you know, be there right next to that person who is at the beginning of the journey, and maybe, you know, at least make them know that they are not alone and it's not totally crazy.
I think there's an interesting path when you start to question what you have been brought up into, how you have, some people would call it indoctrinated, some people would just call it as
To say
learned. You could say the Gabor Mate, I'm reading his book, The Myth of Normal, and I like the title of it. And it's just, if you have been brought into this, all this is normal, and then you start to question, should children go to schools? Do they learn best in the setting that is the school setting? At some point, you can end up questioning yourself so much that you get very insecure as a parent on what is right and what is wrong. And at the same time, you have most likely not led a life where you have learned to trust your parental intuition, because we have been in a system where we have dislearned our intuition through life. And I think this is what we unravel when we live outside the box. We question a lot of stuff, and then there is this relearning. What do I actually feel about this? What does feel right in this situation? And for example, to go back to the question about the toothbrush, there is an interesting dialogue around what is bodily anatomy. Is it? I think it
autonomy.
Autonomy. It's called. Difficult words here. No, but how do a child have the right to its own body? On which level? And what are you actually telling your child with different levels of deciding over it? If you are in a school setting, you are not deciding when you want to go pee and poop. And that is really wild to take that decision away from people. A lot of homeschool children of the boys end up with long hair because nobody is saying to them that boys don't have long hair. I know it's also seen in school setting, but there's a majority of the unschooled homeschool children I've seen with long hair, and they have the freedom to choose over their hair. But imagine someone is deciding over your hair. Your hair is not even your own. For a lot of children, when they wake up in the morning, there's laid out clothes to them. This is what you have to wear today. So in many small steps, we are telling children who grown up to be adults, you do not control your own body. Someone else decide over you. And
do you think,
yeah, please go ahead.
oh no, sorry, I interrupted. Sorry, just something you said about the long hair and the messages that we give our kids, because I read an article once about a family that were in the news, and it was an article about supposedly about unschooling, and how these terrible unschooling parents didn't make their kids wash their hair. And these kids had really dirty, dreadlocky hair. And the parents said, well, you know, if that's the way they want it, we're not going to tell them what to do. But then I was thinking about that, and they said it's up to them to decide. It's their hair, they can decide. And I thought about it for a long time and thought, the parents, there's no such thing as never influencing your child.
No.
Whether you say, well, I'm going to step back and not, you can do what you like with your hair. You can eat what you like. You don't have to brush your teeth if you don't like. But are we really doing our kids a favor if we let them do things which exclude them from main society, for example? The message that parent gave me when I read the article was, it doesn't matter about hygiene, about personal hygiene. It doesn't matter about good nutrition, and it doesn't matter about what other people think of you. And we were talking, Cecilia, the first episode, about doing things to be accepted into groups and how we make that choice to be accepted. And in some ways, there are certain standards that we all need to adhere to in order to be part of society. Now, long hair and short hair, it doesn't matter to me. That's a personal choice. But when you're smelly and you haven't washed your hair and you're not pleasant to be around, that's another matter altogether. We bring our kids up to believe that it doesn't matter what I think it was is other people don't matter. What you want matters more than what other people want. But there are times when we have to put our own preferences aside and do what's right, which is care about other people. Otherwise, we all end up in our little bubble, self-focused. And of course, we're going to get criticized if we don't shower, don't bath, don't wash our hair, our teeth fall out, we get obese because we don't eat properly. So I wonder what you think about that, because that is sort of giving the control to our children, yes, but do we have to guide our children at the same time?
No, let me start out by saying, first of all, absolutely 100% agree. My point is basically, when we take if we look at the myth of normal, that the boys have short hair and we put them to school, and you're not deciding over your own body when you need to pee and poo and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you open up the door to hey, you can actually be a real human. Then there, of course, needs some guidance, and I can understand why some people might lose it's more, I think, fear of interfering in their children's lives than it is parenting, because
That could be received a little judgmental by someone, being on that spectrum.
It might.
And I think that what you are saying really is there's a pendulum. And if you let go of the strictness of the mainstream and the school system and all the rules and the parental control, and realize, oh, it's not my body to decide over, it's not ours to decide over, let me set my child free, then sometimes it swings a little too much to the other side. And the interesting, and I just wanted to
please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I'm saying that we shouldn't judge those who are, they did let go of something wrong, and then maybe, it swung a little too far in the other side. And we've all done that in our life. Balance is not a stable thing. It's a navigation of, steering. And I think, well, the headline to my answer to these kind of questions usually is that unschooling is not unparenting. And I think that, of course, we have to teach our children to navigate all these things and a lot of other things. And I think it has to do with the quality of how we do it. And I remember having some conversations with you in the beginning of our journey where I had all the time in the world, plus I was already a psychologist. So I could think about these things. I was home with the children. I'd read all the books and, I was in the process of reading them. And you were still in the mainstream life in the office busy making all the money for us. And we had to discuss, do I spend the good part of an hour sitting waiting for a 3-year-old to swallow a pill that she has to swallow because of something, medical, or do we just force it? And I would, say, I'm waiting. I'm not forcing. The pill is going into that child's body before I go to bed tonight because it has to, because I know it has to. And the child doesn't understand it. She's basically too young. But this is not about whether the pill goes into the body, and that could be whether the hair gets washed or the teeth get brushed or the t-shirt gets changed before we leave the house. It's about how I make sure that happens.
Yeah.
And that is the big difference. We had another rule, and it's ringing in my head in Danish, so I don't know how the translation will come out, but we would usually say when we left the house, and now it's just basically a standard rule because we are based out of a van, so you breathe and then you're outside, that your clothes have to be clean, no stains, no holes, preferably no holes. We can live with half sort of broken clothes, that happens, but it has to be clean. And the hair, actually, as you brought it up, is a big deal for me because it's such a marker on how good you take care of yourself. And we have a lot of hair in our family because our kids have a lot of hair. It's very long and huge and curly and overwhelming. And now finally they're all old enough to take care of it themselves. But it has been a big deal that there are two things here, really. There is what I really believe about it, which is I have to teach my children to carry themselves in the social field in a way that is just respectful to other people and honors the culture that we live in. In some cultures, you kick off your shoes before you enter a house. In some cultures, that would be too private to do. In some cultures, you can't show your shoulders. You have to read the culture, and you have to somehow honor and respect the other people around you. And in our culture, if there's ketchup all over the t-shirt and the dreadlocks are not nice, I mean, dreadlocks can be nice if they're maintained. But if this is unmaintained, chaotic, and just looks like neglect, well, then it looks like neglect. And I would say it is neglect because you have to teach the child to carry him or herself through their society. The other thing is, I'm a radical unschooling mom. I live a very different life from everyone else. I'm public about it. So people look at me and they look at my kids, and I have to know that I could ruin it for everyone else if we look like neglect, if we look like suffering, if we look like, well, just something not nice. So we have to just do it a hair better than if we did all the mainstream things. Then maybe, we could skip the hair now and then, and there could be ketchup here and there. But as we're sort of representatives of a group, a very vulnerable group doing something radically different, we can't go around looking like what people think it looks like if we're full of ketchup and dreadlocks. So it's a two-sided thing.
Yeah, I like what you said about we're unschooling or radically unschooling, but we're not unparenting. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what radical unschooling is. And maybe a lot of people also feel insecure, that they feel that they have to let go completely of everything. And so there's no guidance because maybe parents want to look like they're doing the right thing as far as unschooling goes, because they might get judged by other unschoolers. Oh, you intervened or guided some child to overcome some obstacle that had to be overcome, instead of just letting it go its course and letting the child not brush their teeth, not wash their hair, whatever, not take the pill. And maybe a lot of parents feel that that's the way they have to be if they want to be radical unschoolers, not really understanding the concept of radical unschooling. It's not the same with unschooling. It's not just do what you want. You've got the freedom to do what you want, and you should always do what you want, regardless of around you. What you were saying, Cecilia, about we have to respect other people around us.
And we have to take care of ourselves. I was thinking about this personal hygiene element, that actually this theme has sparked so many interesting conversations in our family. We talked about it for hundreds of hours. A lot of interesting conversations come from this, and this is about, again, and I think this is the important part and the important answer to both of the questions in the headline. It's about the quality of how we guide our children through this, and how we think about what we're doing when we do it. It's about spending that hour every day waiting for the child to swallow that, what is it in English, antibiotics when it's necessary. Yeah. And just knowing that hour is really well spent. Or spending hundreds of hours having conversations about the hairbrush and whether it's needed or not and why. Or about clothing, what you wear and why you wear it and why you don't wear it to a funeral or a wedding. And, you know, all these things. We've learned so much about what life is and what society is and who we are in it and what kind of people we want to be. There's been a lot of ethics spiraling off from this, and we all became wiser. And sometimes we learn from the children. They say, you know, this is the last time I'm doing it. I don't want to ever be late again. If we have an appointment with other people, we make sure we're there on time. And he was like, he's a very soft and kind child. At that day, he was like, I've had it. This is too chaotic. We can do it. If we say we arrive at 4, we're there before 4. I'm done with being late. And we had some amazing conversations about that, and about navigating yourself in the social field, and how you take good care of other people, and, you know, about ethics and moral and flow of life and friendships and all kinds of things. It took a lot of time, instead of me just putting out my index finger and telling my children, you have to be on time to be a good person. Or you have to brush your teeth twice a day, 2 minutes.
Do you think that our kids pick up a lot of things just naturally because they're part of our family, and they're part of the way we run our lives and the things that we do? For example, after that story that of the kids that didn't wash their hair. No, I didn't mean to put down dreadlocks. I should have said matted. I should have said their hair was matted, because yes, what you said, Cecilia, dreadlocks can look good, and it's not something that we should avoid if that's what people want to have. And people read those sort of stories, and then they say, I'm not going to unschool my children if that's the way it is. And then they start worrying about all sorts of things. But I remember one of my daughters once said the same question about the toothbrush, or it might have been showers, and it was a little person. If I unschool, how am I going to ensure my child or my children clean their teeth? And her answer was, as a teenager, was parents have to be confident. Don't look around and find problems. Your child is closely connected to you as a parent, and they're going to look towards you for guidance. And what's normal for the parent will become normal for the child most times.
Mm-hmm.
So none of my children have ever had a problem with toothbrushes or showers. When they were babies, they showered with my husband or had a bath with me, and we all cleaned our teeth together. And they never sort of stopped and thought, oh, is that not normal to clean your teeth? It's just part of life, part of what we all do. And I wonder how much of that natural life experience, so that we might anticipate problems, but we might not have certain problems. I'm not saying that you won't have problems with toothbrushes, but we didn't. But when I wouldn't know what to say to somebody who does. I would say, well, do what we did.
I mean,
but we were a different family.
You just said it, because I think a lot of parents never brush their teeth in the presence of their toddlers, because they do it in the morning before the toddler wakes up, especially if you live a mainstream life and you have to leave the house. It's so much more practical just to get up before the children and get your own body up and running, and the child goes to bed a few hours before yourself, if you can stay awake. At least you think you can. So it's not part of now we all go to the bathroom and get our body ready for sleep. It's more like you have to get your teeth brushed, and we all have to do that, and the dentist says so. So this natural part of life thing, I think it's a big part of a solution. And then the other thing, we talked about responsibility and not so nice, not very warm thing I often say to parents, now you're warned, is, suck it up. It's your child, it's your job, it's your problem. If your child hates that toothbrush, you broke it. Now you have to fix it, because the toothbrush is not in and of itself a problem. You pushed too hard at some point, or you made the child afraid, or you used it too, maybe the
paste.
Crema dental, the paste, it had too much mint, or something happened, and
where did it come from? What was the
6
cause
hours
of the problem?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or forget about why, but you have to solve it now.
But Cecilia, I also I remember back when we had our children in the kindergarten, and our oldest went to school. The amount of stuff that needed to take place after waking up the children. After waking up the children in the morning, and before we had to go out of the door, and they should be in school, and I should or kindergarten, and I should be at work. It was so stressful when I look back at it, that I understand how many parents in a top-down controlled morning, where you decide. I mean, I got crazy waiting on our oldest to put on her socks. She could take literally 1 hour to put on one sock.
She was tired when you think about it now.
Absolutely. No, but I'm just putting myself into the place I were. It was crazy. So you end up kind of saying, oh, now I do it, and you are actually kind of forcing a sock on another person. That's not very nice, and that is taking a control where you, and that's why I talked about bodily autonomy, that sometimes it breaks if you have led a life that have been more controlled top down, because you have created an environment around you where stuff just needed to take place so fast in the mornings. It is, if you look at the normal mornings for an everyday family with 2 jobs and the kids going to school and institution, it is a crazy amount of stress that they put on themselves before the day actually starts. And that, I think, breaks a lot of both connection and trust in my parents want the best for me, and all these things that needs to be mended when you decide that school or institution doesn't work for you, and you take them out, and then you start here and you start to question yourself, you start to question all you're doing, and it's a really tough job to walk down this path. And I just want to give a lot of love to all the parents starting, because I remember how difficult it was, and I remember the feeling of freedom when we started to have our children at home. It was such a good time.
Especially because, all these things were now my
That
problem.
was now Cecilia's problem, and I could just go to work in the morning, and it was wonderful. No, but
Yeah.
and I felt a little cheated in the morning sometimes. They were still sleeping, but I came home to children who were happy and well slept, and I didn't had a fight with everybody before we left for work and school and institution in the morning. And it's just a very stressful life. So I think a lot of what happens is that there's a lot that needs to be mended, and I have been brought up with going to, I was lucky my mom was at home until my sister started in school, which meant I was 3 years old when my mom started working. So my first 3 years have been a bliss in a wonderful family with a garden and all was good and funny. Um, but after that, I was needed to go away every morning, a big change in life. And this is what I've grown up with as normal. And that is what because that was what was normal for me, thought should be the way life was when I got children. So yeah, I just think yeah, there's a lot
There's
of,
so many, the parenting, it's like the normal parenting advice. There's so much of it that is contrary to what kids need, but it's out there. And I think new parents, especially looking back myself when I was reading all the books, you sort of think things like if I sleep with my child, or if I don't force my child to eat everything on the plate, or if I carry my child around all the time, I'm going to spoil my child. There's a lot of that around, and it can take a lot of confidence to put aside all those views and say, I'm just going to listen to my child and do things our way. Well, not our way, but the way of the child that suits the child better. And I'm going to risk being called a bad parent, because there's so many, you hear so many things. I once read a blog post called How to Have Demanding Children Who Rule the House. And it was pro radical unschooling, but it sounds like if you let your children do whatever they want or whatever they need, then you're going to end up with kids who are very demanding. They're going to run the house. And it doesn't happen that way, but there's that fear at the back of a lot of parents' minds that we have to stay in control. Otherwise, our kids are just going to rule our lives. They go, and they're not going to turn out the other end very responsible, or yeah, to just the contrary advice that parents are bombarded with. And it takes a lot of confidence, I think, to listen to new ideas and to try new things out, and most of all to listen to children and not be afraid of listening to children. If they don't want the meal, don't make them have it. If they're not ready for bed, don't make them go. If that sort of thing, if there's certain things, we want kids to do, as they want certain things that kids have to, like we were talking about personal hygiene. There's certain things, standards that the family adheres to, but there's certain things which don't make any sense at all by forcing kids to do them. What does it matter if a child goes to bed at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or midnight if they don't have to get up the next morning, if there's no good reason for it, if that's their cycle? There's no good, to me, it seems, why should children empty their plates if they don't like the food? And I guess the good reason would be, some people would say, well, they've got to learn to eat what's on their plate because they mustn't waste it. And what if we go to somebody else's house and they're given food that they don't like, and then I'll be embarrassed because my child won't eat it? It's best they get used to emptying their plates, whatever. And there can be reasons, but are the reasons valid? And do they work for the benefit of the child? Because it's the child that we're thinking about, isn't it? So when we're talking about it's necessary children have a certain level of hygiene, it affects the family, but it also, that's a benefit for the child. The child might not see that to start with, but it is benefiting the child to have that look after themselves, have those standards, and to be able to interact with other people without being thought of as weird or smelly or whatever.
I think you
Yeah.
actually, hit a nerve right there when you said we are thinking about the child, because I think very often we're not.
Mm.
Very often that's the problem. We think about, what if we go to someone else's house and we have this embarrassing child that will sit there at the dinner table and say, that looks disgusting, I refuse to eat it. That would be embarrassing for us as parents.
Yeah.
And with many of these things, I think sometimes we confuse things, and I'm no saint. I sometimes confuse things, and I take into account other people's opinions. And, this is a circle dance here, because in the beginning of the conversation, we talked about how important it is to actually take in other people's opinions and standards and emotions and comfort zones. But sometimes we overdo it. And we think, oh, if my child doesn't learn to finish what's on the plate, then it will be embarrassing next time I'm at my in-laws' place or my sister's place or whatever. So I have to teach them that. But do you really? Do you really? And is that more important that your 3-year-old might, embarrassingly shout, I hate broccoli at grandma's place? Is that more important than the child learning to put something in their mouth that they want to put in their mouth, and have a good relation with, what is my body calling for? What do I like? And having fun around eating, letting the dinner table be a social, funny, happy, laughing conversation situation, and not a teachable moment with demands and standards and rules. And I think actually, once you ask people that question, they're like, oh yeah, duh, of course, I don't care. I'm just going to tell my mother-in-law that they hate broccoli and whatever, And sometimes we confuse it. And because there are so many levels of standards and things we learned when we were children, and things we heard other people say, and things we see in the streets, and things we imagine, sometimes it becomes very confusing, and we're not thinking about the child and the child's need, and just staying in that zone of, hey, I'm the parent, it's my responsibility, I have to fix this. Let's say it's the toothbrush. It might take you 2 hours every day for the next 6 months. Too bad.
Do you think that, from what Jesper was saying, that the answer to the client about the toothbrush would start with some questioning about why does the child not want to use the toothbrush? Did something happen? And to investigate that first?
I would do that if it was a client, but in this case, I have to write something about it. So I have to have an opinion without getting any more information. So
But maybe you could suggest that sometimes children might have a problem with certain things because of something that happened. Is it worth thinking about that before you find a solution? Because the cause might be the solution.
Yeah.
Like you said, it could be the toothpaste.
Yeah.
It could, absolutely.
Or the situation, take it into another room at another time of day, and do something else around it, and everybody's brushing their teeth and hair and whatever, make a spa situation at home, whatever to solve it. If you believe the children have to have their teeth brushed at least once a day, most people believe that. If you believe that and you have a child that refuses to do it, there's been a lot of shouting and maybe some force and a lot of tears, and now it's stuck. You can't get anywhere. And the child is only 2 years old. There's no way you can explain about cavities and all these things. It's a waste of time. So what do? And my answer is, well, you do whatever. For whatever amount of time it takes. You do whatever is needed, but do it with a different quality. It's about the feel of it. Make it something fun. Make it not as something that you demand, something that has to happen, and it also has to happen very late at night when everybody's too tired, and in the bathroom that maybe is too small or whatever, other people need it, we have to hurry up, all these things. Change the setting, change the room, change the feel of it, and spend whatever amount of time it takes. And it can be very annoying. It can be so annoying to be a parent, really. I mean, I'm not a very patient person. I'm not. I don't like waiting. I really don't like waiting. And I have a very long agenda every day of things I want to complete. And I find it so annoying if I have to spend time again discussing the toothbrush or the hairbrush or, basic things. I'm like, can we get over this? But I know that if I get angry and I start pushing, and if I don't have the emotional space for whatever protest my child has or whatever, I just have to wait. I just have to wait. And maybe this day again, we didn't read Shakespeare, and we didn't bake a cake, and we only went for a very short walk with the dogs, and a lot of things never happened because we spent all the time discussing the toothbrush or whether hair should be washed or not, or these things that it can really push my buttons. I know how it feels, but I also know the only right solution is patience. Patience is my job. I'm the mother. I put them into this world. Raising them is my problem, my job, my task, and patience that's just the price I'm paying.
I would like to go back to something you said that made me think, which was the attitude or thought that some people can have that you can spoil your children. And I've been sitting while you've been talking and pondering about how do you actually spoil someone? Is it when you are doing something to try to get people to behave in a certain way? Is it kind of manipulating them? Because spoil is a really weird word in parenting, I think. I mean, have I ever tried to be loved too much? Would I, if everybody sent me a lot of love in the family and just sat down and told
I
me,
saw something funny in
yeah, it was not about the love. I know.
Sorry.
Have I, as a parent or as a grown-up, ever complained about being loved, about people doing stuff for me because they love me? It's a really wild way that when we love children and do stuff for our children because we love them, then we call it spoiling. I don't think you can love.
Parenting.
Yeah, I don't think you can love people too much. It's just wild that some people have this idea that, and I'm questioning then what is the motive behind doing the things if it is spoiling. Maybe I don't understand what they actually mean with spoiling.
So we have animal themed podcast today. There's our poodle.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
I've
add
got a
to
cat
that.
sleeping behind my back.
Perfect.
But yes, spoiling, I think you're right, yes, but that when people are talking about spoiling, what they're talking about is showing too much love towards their children, and we can't love too much. They're afraid of showing too much love towards their children. Or maybe I always wonder sometimes about joy. You know, what we've always loved doing is making things special. Giving joy to each other, making an occasion more joyful. So, for example, we might go to town to do the shopping, and I might think, oh, look, I'll buy some finger buns at the bakery while we're there. And then we'll stop at the park and we'll extend the experience. I'll bring a little bit of joy into our ordinary day. Or when my kids were doing music exams, and we all felt so joyful for that, but I wanted to show my joy in a concrete way. So I bought flowers for my kids, my girls, and we went out for lunch, and it was full of joy. Or you have one-on-one occasions with your children, and you just delight in their company and go somewhere special. And then one day, this is normal for us. And one day, a friend said to me, "Oh, she said, if my children do all their schoolwork quickly, I'm going to take them out for a special lunch." And then I thought, oh, but I take my kids out for a special lunch without any conditions. I just do it because I don't worry about rationing it out. I just want to bring as much joy and as much love into our lives as possible. I'm not thinking that my kids have to deserve it and that I'm going to spoil them by saying, "Oh, look, we had lunch together last week, a special lunch. Is it too soon to have another one?" Perhaps they'll get used to the idea that we're always going to have lunch and they have to earn it and deserve it. And I think just by being my children and me loving them, that's enough reason for showing them love and for wanting to make life joyful for all of us. And those things I'm saying about, buy a finger bun or whatever, they're just physical representations of my love for my children. It's just like hugging them. Sometimes we buy a finger bun, sometimes we hug, sometimes we go and buy a bunch of flowers for somebody. Sometimes we'll go pick flowers from the garden. Sometimes a little person might bring a dandelion. It's not the value of the things, it's the thought behind, I want to show this person I love them. I want to spend special time with this person. I want to go to a cafe and talk over the table and have coffee and connect with my child. And it's not, those sort of things shouldn't be rationed out.
And also, I don't like the strategizing, the manipulative way that it can be done, that, if you do this, then I'll be nice to you. It's a weird, and also the retfærdighed, what's that in English? That things should be balanced out and be fair. I do a lot. So I agree and also try to do the joy thing, but I also think spoiling, what other people would call me spoiling my children, is all the little things I do for them that they don't even notice I do. Even though they are quite old at this point, they're 12, 15, and 18 living with us. And I'll take their dirty dish from next to their gaming computer and bring it back up and throw out the napkins and put it in the dishwasher, and I'm fine. I don't care. I'm happy, that I'm making their life easier. It's fine, really. And if it's not, I'm not doing it. Lots of parents would, disagree with these choices and say that, they get off the hook too easy, or, they should contribute and they should have their chores. But really what I see is, I see it as my job, and it is part of my joy as a mother to carve out a path for them if they need it. And when they are older children, very often the demands become huge. Mine are not in school, thankfully. So the demands from school is not there, but even the idea of how much they should be contributing and how much they should be able to, scan a room and see that the bin has to be emptied and the coffee machine should be turned off, or whatever it is. It's not the job of a 14-year-old. Their minds are doing other stuff. And I'm a housewife. I'll do it in 5 minutes. I don't care. It's like I do it without even thinking. So this strategizing that, I have to make them do these things. I'm not touching their plates because it's their problem. It becomes so hard, and so it's so far away from the unconditional love we talked about last time. And it's so far away from just, making life easy for each other. And really, we have children, if we ask them, if we say, now it's time to clean the house and we all have to contribute, they'll get up and they'll do their best until we're done.
But that is also the joy of having many children compared to, I remember with our now 25-year-old, I had never tried to live together with someone whose brain is going from being a child to being a teenager with all those stuff going on. And back then I was just annoyed with her not remembering, or can't you see that there's a plate right there, or you put it in the sink, but the dishwasher was empty. All these things that you can get annoyed about because you don't remember how it was to be a teen, and you haven't had a child living through that phase. And what I'm pointing at is that I think there's something wrong with the way we have decided to live in these small enclaves of one family units today, where we don't learn from each other that well. People are sitting and listening podcasts where earlier they would just look over the shoulder to their cousin who was in the next room, or in the next house right over.
But really also, we've had a long phase of our societies in the Western world where the agenda has been to get workers ready. Really, we've needed to make sure the children grow up and they become disciplined and they become obedient, so that they can work in the factories. And nowadays, maybe we think that they have to be disciplined and obedient so that they can work in an open office space, writing emails all day.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because this is also what's on people's minds when they ask the other question. Now they're done with the toothbrush and they're moving on to the college problem. They want to set their children up for success, and maybe they haven't thought too long about what that success really is, because I don't know who has the time for that. And we all agree, if we don't think too long about it, that college or university could be a good, solid, not stepping stone, but cliff rock to stand on to have a successful life. And I don't even disagree. I liked university. I think knowledge is great. I'm just saying that we're sort of doing the same thing still as a society, not me personally, but doing the same thing, that we're trying to get the children ready for the life that we think they are going to have, with the skill set that we think that they will need at that point. And even down to toddlers, some parents are afraid, my child will never be disciplined, or my child will never be obedient, and that's why they can't rule the house, which of course they can. It's their house. Why am I the king of the house? We're all living here. But there's this idea, they have to learn to obey, and they have to learn to go to bed, and they have to listen to their alarm clock in the morning, and they have to clean out their backpack, and they have to do their homework, and they have to tie their shoelaces and comb back the hair and say, yes, yes, General.
There isn't any time for joy in a life like that.
No.
But your story about what you were saying about taking the cup away from the gaming, when your children are playing games, or bringing some food because they get absorbed in the game and then they forget to eat, just reminded me of something that I wrote about and was thinking about how one of my children is terrible at returning mugs from her bedroom. And I go in there and I just grab them and take them away and wash them. And other parents might say, you should make your child do it herself. How is she ever going to learn? Why should you do that? And then I was thinking one day about my husband, who never takes his library books back. Yeah, he'll go to the library, he'll borrow a big stack of books, and then if he won't take them back, which is a problem sometimes when he borrows them on my ticket, because I can't borrow any more books until he's returned all the ones that he borrowed on my ticket. And I think the problem isn't a child problem. The problem is some people are just not set up for remembering to bring cups back or to take their library books back. And so what I do with my husband is I'm trying to help him. I'll take his books back for him and say, well, where are your library books? I'm going into town today. I'll take them back for you. My daughter, she doesn't think about her cups until the point where we're making coffee, and I'll say, well, where's your cups? And she'll say, oh, they must all be in my bedroom. And I'll go and get the cups for her. And to help each other, that's what we're here for, is to build each other up and to help each other. And I called that, I wrote that as an article, and I called it Acts of Love. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about loving our children, not, and what you were saying, Cecilia, about the way where society is set up these days, there's less time for that joy, less time for those acts of love. We've said it a few times during this the conversation that sometimes you just want the kids to do things. Bring your cups back. There's no time to do it. It's just one more thing that has to be done, and life would run smoother if everybody remembered to bring their cups back. But in the way that we're living our lives, we've slowed down and we've looked at what's most important. Yeah, we, as you say, we have to learn patience and
become a
yeah.
community. We're a group. You know, if I do what I'm good at and I do it with joy, so I'm bringing joy into the room, and I say stop when I'm tired. So I'm not moving any more cups today. I'm sorry. If you need a cup, you have to go get it yourself because I'm not getting up anymore today. I'm doing it, you know, wholehearted and honest. Other people in the family are doing their thing, you know, to the best of their abilities. Then in my experience, there are only a few things left that no one can do. And you have to share, be like, we all hate whatever, taking out the trash. We all forget it. And now we have 200 kilos of trash in the kitchen. Maybe we should, you know, set an alarm clock for every Tuesday or whatever. It seems like trusting the process and trusting each other in the process and doing all these things from a point of love is just so much healthier way to live your life than this strategizing, this manipulative, we all have to wash our own cup sort of way to be a family. Or you can't have any tea today because you have all the cups in your room and I'm holding on to mine. Like, you know, what's that? I have to say something off topic, which is I have something in the oven and I smell it's burning.
Yeah.
Would you, who are closer,
Yeah, check
take
it
it out?
I was just gonna finish this stuff.
I was
Because-
just thinking about Jesper's you know, spoiling, and can we spoil with too much love? And I was thinking what we really want for our children is to love in their turn, to be loving people. And how does that come about? We can't be something that we can't give something we've never experienced. So it's like being generous people. We learn to be generous by having generosity shown to us. We learn to be loving by having been loved. What sort of love do we want our children to show? We want them to show extraordinary love, generous love, joy-filled love, not rationed love. And the only way for our kids to learn that is to experience it. And that gives us permission to love them as much as they want. There's a good reason. We're not going to spoil them. We're going to set them up so that they are extraordinarily generous and giving people. And in that, I think that we talk about spoiling. Well, I don't spoil, but other people say we can spoil. But that sort of infers that our children are going to become very self-focused, very selfish people. Whereas I think, like we talked about last time, that when we give generous love to our children, they learn a generous love themselves. And then they are, in their own turn, willing to go get the cups for somebody, to make a little sacrifice here or there, to fit into. It's not all about getting your own way and doing things your own way and to suit yourself. That when we love properly, we look outwards, away from ourselves, to other people that we love, and we think, how can we love them best? Not how can I get as much, but how can we love? I know what it feels like to be loved. How can I do that for somebody else? And that when that is in a family, you get that flow of what you said, Cecilia. Some people go get the mugs, some other people do other things, and we work together. But I also think that though it might seem like they don't realize that we're taking their mugs for them or giving them food, I think there does come a point where, and you know, there's occasions where and we spoke about this last time, when kids realize that we need that consideration as well. We're overworked or we're busy, we're sitting there at the computer, and someone brings us a cup of coffee and says, oh, you haven't had time to make a cup of coffee, Mum. Here's a cup of coffee for you. And I'll say, thank you, keep on drinking. And it looks like I haven't noticed really. But, you know, I sit back and think, yeah, they're looking after me. I didn't mind looking after them.
It reminds me of well, the backstory for this is I said yes to work for Janet Atwood some years ago, who have written a New York Times bestseller called The Passion Test. And she has a facilitator education where people can learn to give the passion test. And I went through that training. And on the last day, we ended with an exercise called What I Love and Appreciate About You. And for me, I was like, that's some weird hippie, weirdo thingy, man. And I mean, it's people I've spent 4 days with intensively in training, and we have talked about many things, but I still remember, and it's now 10 years ago, I remember both how overwhelmingly fantastic it felt when people stood in line in front of each other and they said to me what they loved and appreciated about me, and also how trained I was in giving that acknowledgement to grown-up people around me. It is not something we are very good at. And it's something I try to remember to do still from time to time. And it is
Forward to it.
yeah. Yes.
You're welcome.
What's
I'll be your exercise.
what I love and appreciate about you, Cecilia, is you always honest and rough and very sarcastic, and it actually makes me laugh.
I want to know what the other people said about you, yes, but what did they stand up and say about you? What did they love about you?
I can't remember, actually. I can just remember I was standing actually more and being afraid of what should I say about the other people that could be deep
Good
felt
enough.
and feel good enough and not superficial. And so I was back then more in a, oh, am I good enough? Can I do it good enough state, to be honest, I think. But what
Yeah,
I
I
love
was
and appreciate about you, Sue, is your ability to be in these conversations with us, and a wonderful mix of listening, asking, sharing, and then I also love your laugh and your eyes. I think you seem very present when we talk, and I like that.
Oh,
Well
thank you so
done.
much. You did really well. It was, well, I tell you that it's very easy to sit here and get involved in the conversation. What you're saying is so interesting that I want to listen. And what you're saying sparks me a thought within me that I want to continue the discussion. And I find that it's easy to express what I feel because you're very accepting. And I feel that we got different families, we're different countries, but we have a lot in common. And we're all willing to listen to each other and to learn from each other. And I've been most interested to hear, Cecilia, your views as a psychologist mother, because I imagine your two roles sometimes overlap. And as a pure amateur over here, trying to help people, I find that really fascinating. And well, when I was, I'm not good on social media, you know that, but been trying. And you, yesterday, you followed me on Facebook, and I have 4 whole followers. It's just amazing. 4 followers and you're one. But I did notice scrolling through your page that you're giving some talks. And I thought, there's a lot to us that nobody knows about, or that there's always more to find out about people if we're interested in people. And I'm thinking, oh wow, I want to know more about that. And I was thinking, I don't know how you feel about this, but we should do an episode where I am the one that's, welcoming everyone to the podcast, and I will ask you some questions because
let's do it. We have
Down for that.
monthly episode with you because otherwise I'll miss you too much, I think.
we just turn the tables a bit, have an equal
That's-
discussion, but let me be there's so many things I want to find out about you.
But I'm certainly open for that.
I said before we started this recording, I was thinking it's the third one, and I don't want it to be the last one.
No, but maybe we should get down under at some point also.
The only thing is that
the
they
dogs.
changed the policy of importing dogs to Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We travel with 2 dogs and we can't get into Australia, so I don't know.
No.
Maybe there's a nearby island where we can be.
Well,
I don't know. It would cost us a fortune, and
but it will come at some point. At that point.
Yes, we should
Yes.
get down under at some point.
But it is time to round up.
Now we should just make dinner.
Yeah, it is time to round up. It has been an episode
We still
going
have
in many directions. And we still don't have a certain answer about the toothbrush that sparked the start or the college. What I know and feel is that when you are on this path of starting to questioning yourself, there is a time and a period, if I look at my own life and time, where first you go all rebellious because you need this kind of stamina in breaking free. And then you end up being anti everything. I've seen that in myself and in a lot of others who start their journey. And then when you relax a little and come back to finding out what your real values are in life, then it's an easier journey to take. You don't need to be against stuff to stand for something.
What I really love about this episode is last episode was unconditional love. And we said that was sort of like the foundation of everything. And somehow we started talking about toothbrushes, but before very long, we're back to love again, which just sort of proves that it is, it's our guiding light. It's the most important aspect of our family's lives, not the toothbrush, not the mess,
no.
Whatever. It's unconditional love. And with that, we'll, as long as we love each other, we'll be fine. Life won't be perfect. Kids won't always want to brush their teeth, but we'll still be fine.
So we're doing a love round now. I will say the short version of my admiration for you is that I try every morning to be you. It is exactly what's going through my mind. I'm like, okay, I have to do like her. I have to sit there with my coffee and be available. I stopped having all of that agenda. She did it with all of her children, and I have to keep doing it. Don't do a lot of things, Cecilia. Sit down, be available. And I think I'm doing good. That's thanks to you. I think I've become a better mother, a more present person, and I've carved out more hours to spend with my precious children doing what's right, to be there, to be available with no agenda for them, but, supporting them in agendas they have and wanted me to help them complete. And the only downside is that a lot comes up. I realize the morning is not enough. I have to be you all day, or at least available all day. And thank you for that.
In that being available all day, there's also that I found my kids were very considerate and thoughtful in that they knew there were certain things I would like to do. And so they also helped me achieve my things as well. So that, because again, I listened to them and gave them my time. They were willing to give up some of their time so that I could do my stuff. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't do our stuff, but my priority definitely was my kids first. But the other thing I was thinking about, Cecilia, was one day I realized that my time was running out, that I want to do this Facebook post and I want to do this Instagram post and I wanted to get involved in this conversation and that conversation, and I wasn't spending enough time with my kids. And I thought, my kids aren't going to be here much longer. Get your priorities right. And today I'm sitting here with a cat and there's a dog out there and I have no children at home, and I could sit here and talk to as many people as I want, write as many blog posts as I want. And, I think, oh, wish my kids were here.
Well, I hear you.
Not that I'm not enjoying my life, but I'm glad, I have no regrets. I'm glad that we spent all that time together.
Amazing again.
We have enjoyed the talk, and we will put in the show notes links to where you can find out more about Sue and everything she's doing. And Sue, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Cecilia and Jesper. It's been a great delight.